only on Ninjago.
And this year, 2026, Ninjago is commemorating its 15th anniversary. I'll announce a series of monthly videos in which I will make my own Ninjago story. I hate Dareth. They're gonna play a role in this special? No, not the hands of time, not even elemental time in general. Just time. Realistically though, we are never going to escape from Chimex, tricycles, bikes, cars, transforming plant pots, walking fridge. A package just arrived in the mail. The special is set between Crystallized and Dragon's Rising. Then I drove 16 kilometers to get this monstrosity. Ninja 6, Nia. Status, complete. Now I'm gonna make a quick Master Rook, and now Sagruna can rule over his army and defeat the ninja. But the ninja are gonna need help against such a powerful villain. No, yeah, right about there.
Lloyd's Green
Blade and Jay's Shock Cycle for $37 with Chrono Lloyd, Chrono Jay, a Subar Warrior, and a Kabuki Thug. The first minifigure we'll unlock is the Chrono J that we made in the last two videos. And now we're gonna give him a bike to ride. In fact, can you believe that Jay has only ever had two bikes? One in 2017 and one in 2022. The most important thing to start with when designing bikes is the wheels. Then you know what the size of the frame is gonna be and we can build on top. I knew that I wanted Lloyd's bike to be the bigger one, so I selected these pretty small wheels because unfortunately I don't own a lot of big ones. Ah, the Ninjago cord accent colors. They're like that one coworker that's really nice sometimes, but is an absolute pain to work with. I just came up with that metaphor out of the top of my head. It probably doesn't make any sense at all. Not even to me. What I'm basically saying is I don't have a lot of parts in bright yellow, so whatever I use, I'm gonna have to use smartly. And I do have quite a few pieces in gold, however, I'm gonna have to distribute those across most of the vehicles, which means that I'm not gonna actually use gold for this. Instead, the metallic accent color is gonna be silver, which I have a lot of parts in, especially studs. And studs are very useful. But of course, we can't just make a bike in blue and yellow, then throw some silver studs on it and call it a day. We're also gonna need to use whatever other silver parts we have, and those are some pretty unique ones. One idea I had is that since this is gonna be set around the time period of core, I'm gonna add one of the core banners. Unfortunately, I don't own any core sets, which means that I'm just gonna have to use a red 2x3 tile on a silver Exoforce arm, a clip, and a gray bar piece. Another advantage of using silver as an accent color, whenever I have a spare gold piece but I don't want to use it because I have plans for it, I can just use one in gray that I have tons of. Now the name. Shock Cycle isn't gonna just be for show. We're gonna make this thing be able to emit lightning. Really shocking, huh? Okay, I'm so sorry. For all the lightning pieces, I wanted to use trans yellow. But the thing is, I have to use trans blue because I don't really have a grand variety of pieces in that color. And for most of the other builds, the problem I ran into was that it was hard to keep things consistent when there were so many colors that I had to juggle. But here, it's almost impossible juggling so many colors in one tiny vehicle, so I gotta learn to keep things minimalist. Obviously, the main color is still blue, so we're gonna have to use a lot of pieces in that color, and I think these triangular pieces will give a really nice shape to the build. Now, I'm gonna take some inspiration from his crystallized bike. Obviously not much to make it feel redundant, like I said in my AI video. I'm not very good at designing Ninjago sets. To make life easier, I'm gonna be taking some inspiration from official Ninjago sets that I like, which is actually the case with Jay's crystallized bike, at least the structure of it. Some of the color decisions I'm not too fond of, but so here's the frame of the front wheels. For the back wheels, I'm going to take a bit of inspiration from Desert Lightning and actually make this thing a bit curved so that it'll have a ton of forward rake. Now, if we split these little panels on the side, this is actually going to be a little feature of our model. To attach our little flag assembly, I made this contraption. One which will be attached to a gray snap piece because it's going to have like gray underneath of it. For all these builds, I just want to add a play feature. Stud shooters, spring-loaded missiles don't actually really count as that. Lately, I think LEGO sets have really been missing the play functions that sets of old really got that made them special. And I want to get that back in instead of throwing stud shooters on and saying a set has good playability. For these smaller models, it's going to be slightly more difficult, but I'm still going to try. Of course, having the engine right behind where the driver is going to sit right here isn't a very smart move. I mean, come on, it's Ninjago. You don't expect it to be realistic, do you? Also, you have some giant turbines right beside the engine, or whatever these are called. And these are pieces from like the Power Blast pack from LEGO Marvel. These were last used in 2023, so I guess they're now retired. But whatever, LEGO's a billion-dollar company. They can bring back retired pieces whenever they want. And this is what I was talking about with the flap pieces, because we're going to put these on here, and they're going to flip up. Here's the bottom where I placed a clip for a weapon, another thing that a lot of Ninjago sets are missing, so that's going to be there. That's one of the reasons for the forward rake. Without it, you can't fit accessories down there. All of these MOCs for the Chrono-Dive series are going to have a lot of stripes of the Ninja's secondary or primary color, just to add a bit of color variation to the model so that it isn't all one color. We're also going to need to build 2 of these triangular panels that have electricity coming out of them, which are probably some of my favorite parts of the build. Seat on each one of these sets will be a slightly different color for the most part. So for this one, it's going to be brown. The thing is, I added 2 of these silver spike pieces so that when you place these like this, they can actually be angled to your liking. That creates a bit more dynamic motion. And for that, I added this curved piece, and to place anything on top of that, I'm going to have to use a stud with a hole. I'm going to be making instructions for all these MOCs on Rebrickable. Beware that not all the colors and pieces that you see here are going to be exactly the same as I show you in the instructions, because some of the parts are in cheapest available color. I don't always use them in cheapest color because I just use what I have available. Now it's time for the base. Well, not yet, because first we have to pull out our minifigure that's gonna go there. So this is a standard Subaru Warrior. Let's flip around his face print, give him a random hairpiece, then pop off his head, and give him the neck attachment, which here has a gray stud because that's going to be relatively important. And for each set, I want to do something unique for the base. So for this one, I'm going to give it a cobblestone pathway throughout the entire length of it. And we're going to put him on this clear rod piece to make it appear like the bike made him fly. That's what the gray stud was for earlier, if you were still wondering. Then I actually put the pieces down for the base. And I'm going to place the vehicle on this turntable that's going to go at the edge. And this is a little rock that I put the clear brick under. I also took this Technic piece and hid it behind a couple of bricks. We're actually going to build this base in 2 halves, and the other half is going to contain Lloyd's bike. We're also going to throw a cavity right in the middle of the rocks so there's enough space for all of the bikes to go on. I also added this little green foliage piece to the ground to complement this green section. I also placed rocks back here because remember, this is a labyrinth that only one man has ever managed to get out of, so we need to make it cluttered, which also involves adding a lot of foliage blocking up your view of things. And as you can see, I added a blue flower to represent the fact that Jay is here, along with some of the rocks being sand blue. And these studs here are used to create the beginning of the cobblestone pathway, and the flower here that just fell off is meant to be something that's like lodged out of its place on the ground by the bike. And here's the finished Jay base. Now let's make Lloyd's bike. The funny figure that will unlock is Lloyd, obviously. His accessory is the upgraded golden Season 11 sword with the green stud. Let's see if he fits in frame. We can also remove his hood and give him a hairpiece. Don't worry, the hood will still be included, but I'm gonna try to have one ninja with their hairpiece in every single set that I make. So let's follow our standard bike procedure. Let's choose the wheels, and these are ones that I specifically bought the tires and the back wheel. I bought all of those just for this thing because I already had one golden wheel from the Destiny's Shadow, and I found this being sold on the site that I buy parts from. I also gave it 2 of these trans dark green Darksaber pieces attached to the end. Like I said, it's the green blade, so you gotta have green blades. For the front of this bike, I want to do something unique. Zane's bike from Sons of Garmadon had the same front design as the head of Zane's Titan mech. that's what we're going to be doing. And this is the head of the new Lloyd's Titan mech, except I had to eyeball it, so it might not be the same as it was on that set. And I also adapted it slightly just to be able to place it on the bike.
Hey guys, I'm Dareth, the underpaid editor who makes these videos, and I just want to say Luca Talks, not me, replaced this cheese slope in trans blue with trans orange because he needed that piece or something else, and he had tons of extras of this one.
It's close enough, you can identify what it's supposed to be. The entire exterior is pretty accurate, so I think I can get by with this. I also added a climber hook to the back of an Exoforce arm and some of these Evo mech armor pieces. Why is the bodywork flat? Well, I was talking about Zane's bike from Sons of Garmadon earlier, and that bike had the front come off to become the Falcon, which for some reason had the head of Zane's Titan mech, but that's besides the point. The head of the Titan mech is actually going to stay here. This time it's going to take the minifigure instead of the front. But first, let's just acknowledge that I added this golden popsicle stick piece, which is meant to represent an exhaust pipe. Very important detail. Like I said, all of these models are going to include stud shooters. If I had them in gold, they'd be perfect, but unfortunately I don't. And I also added a lime green strip because, like I said in my second video, I adore lime green on Lloyd. Even though I wasn't able to integrate it into his suit, I will be integrating it into the bike because it just gives it such a dynamic look and complements the design. You may be wondering why there's a black clip. One thing I forgot to mention with the Lloyd figure is that it comes with these green katanas here, which are the smaller version. So you pop them off and you place them on the side. You know, because it's a green blade, so it has to have green blade. But that's only half the fun, because earlier I had them attach to the side of the bike's wheel strut thing. I'm not a bike expert, I don't know what that's named. For the middle of the flyer section, I just gave it a dark tan seat, and the minifigure's not actually going to seat on any studs because they're going to be held in by this handlebar. Man, if this clip was in dark bluish gray, it would be perfect because then it would match up with the back of the sticker, which I took from that really weird flying thing.
So, I'm the editor who is definitely not Luca Talks, here I am again, but I just found out when I was building this thing in the studio that this piece here, this clip, doesn't actually exist in dark bluish gray. Anyway, I added handlebars in dark bluish gray, yeah, just so it kind of matches, but really unfortunate about that clip there, whatever.
From Misfortune's Keep, that belonged to Lloyd. Yeah, that thing existed. Go ahead, look at that thing. It looks so good, doesn't it? Honestly, this kind of looks like that thing that Lloyd had in Dawn of Iron Doom. I guess the bike is done. The sticker and the head basically form two separate fronts, which is kind of a tease that it's going to be able to separate into a flyer, which you can do like that. This makes it a bit different to Jay's bike because the figure is actually sitting more toward the back of the bike instead of in the middle. Since the figure sits on the handlebar and not the actual seat, you don't even need to put them on the seat. They can just be standing on the bike, grabbing onto the handlebars for dear life. It was really fun working with Lloyd's color scheme. Lloyd's is my favorite color scheme because I just really like green. So working with that on this capacity was interesting. I guess LEGO just doesn't produce enough pieces in bright green to make an entirely bright green vehicle for Lloyd. It really doesn't make a difference. And also, you can technically fit two figures on the bike at the same time if they're both hanging on for dear life. Which brings us to the next figure we're going to unlock, Kabuki Thug, which is going to be on Lloyd's base, and she's going to have two golden Wolverine claw pieces. Now, the collectible that's going to be included in the set is the Super Bolt, obviously, because this is a Lloyd set. That's another useful tip I have when it comes to designing MOCs. Always design the centerpiece, especially when it's some sort of shrine, then design around it. But Lloyd's bike is actually pretty heavy, so to hold it up we're going to need a pretty strong mechanism. So for that we're going to use one of these curved translucent pieces. We're going to have it come out by using this bar which goes through the hole here and locks the piece in place. I don't know if the holes are technically at the same height, so this might be an illegal building technique. And that's kind of a theme with these models. I'm just going to hide all of the connection points behind rocks. Speaking of hidden things, I added a little bit of cherry right behind this foliage piece which has a couple of clear pieces behind it. That's more or less where the Kabuki thug is going to be hiding away. And she's actually sitting on a decayed area, which is meant to represent the fact that she's evil. The actual shrine for the Super Bowl is basically just going to be a rock with a stand placed upon it. So that gives us space in the back to make the thing hollow and actually place this little pedestal where we can place this piece, which is totally not a reference to my favorite LEGO theme. On the stand, I also added 2 of these rounded 1x2 plates. That's to make it look a little bit more man-made and less like just a rock. And there's a tree beside it. It's not the most impressive tree anyone's ever seen, but it does the trick well enough. I also added a lot of foliage pieces all the way around it. One of them is holding this key over here. Speaking of hiding connection points behind rocks, what I wanted to capture with this base is just to make it feel inescapable, like you couldn't get out of here, which might not be helped by the fact that I added a cobblestone pathway telling you where to go, but also maybe that cobblestone pathway leads to a dead end. It's Hiroshi's Labyrinth, it's meant to be confusing. I think I captured the action in the scene pretty well. It does feel like the bike is moving through the terrain. The base is always tricky, and now thank you for watching the new part in the Ninjago Chrono-Dive series. I know that this video is a little bit late. I promise that the next one will be on the promised 3rd week of the month. That has been my showcase and breakdown of Lloyd's Green Blade and Jay's Shock Cycle. The set would be retailing for $37 and include the 4 minifigures that I've showed off. If they are out by the time you are watching this, I would encourage you to give a look at the rebrickable instructions if you have liked this video or this mock at all, because I spent a lot of time on it and it would mean the world to me if you guys would even check it out, not even necessarily make a purchase. That would also be very appreciated. So thank you for watching and bye guys.